The painting depicts a family, the mother and child, the father, and also an older child, as they're descending a ladder and they're crossing the border wall into America or further into the United States.
This is Rigoberto Gonzalez. He's a painter. And what you need to know for now is that at one point, his artwork hung in the Smithsonian Museum. Now, he couldn't show his work there if he tried. Back in August, the Smithsonian's director Lonnie Bunch got a letter from the White House. It had some news for Lonnie and her work. She was told that the famous institution had 120 days to comply with what the administration said would be a comprehensive review of its works and content. Said it was more important than ever that our national museums reflect the unity, progress, and enduring values that define the American story. This call for an audit of the works at the Smithsonian wasn't a suggestion. It was the result of an executive order. Order number 14253, titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. And this painting, made by Rigoberto, was specifically highlighted by Trump's White House as an example of the kind of art the administration doesn't want at federal sites and institutions that get a lot of their funding from the U.S. government, like the Smithsonian.
It has the border wall at their back. It has also items on the bottom of the painting. Some of those items are symbolic of the dystopian world that they are coming into or that we live in, the reality of American culture. Some old newspaper that has a Trump impeachment, and that's there to symbolize anti-immigrant sentiment that the immigrants are coming into. Oftentimes people think that immigrants come to the country and it's like a happy ending. It's like, they lived happily ever after. But as they're setting foot in America, there's this strong anti-immigrant sentiment. There's garbage that is fast food containers to symbolize the dangers of the American diet. There's a beer can to symbolize substance abuse. There's an old cell phone case to symbolize our addiction to digital media. Also, a Victoria's Secret ad that symbolizes over sexualized consumerism. We see attractive people being used to sell us all kinds of things.
Rigoberto lives in Texas, about 10 miles from the border into Mexico. And he's Mexican himself. The youngest of 5 siblings, they all moved to the States around middle school and high school age. He says previous to moving here, the American history he learned about never had a shiny veneer. He'd already learned about the struggles people of color were dealing with. So in a lot of ways, this directive to censor something as subjective as art hasn't really shocked him. He says, America, it's many things to many people. Always has been. And I guess I wanted to talk to Rigoberto because his even-keeled diplomacy feels a little shocking to me. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he could be livid right now, feeling targeted, bullied, or even a little scared given that he's a Mexican immigrant himself. But he doesn't feel that way. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
I was happy. I was happy that the painting had made a statement and it had disturbed and created discomfort on the administration that probably feel very powerful by intimidating people. And so I was very happy, and I wear their disapproval as a badge of honor.
From Vermont Public, this is Homegoings, a show that invites you to eavesdrop on candid conversations with people who will challenge what you think you know. I'm Myra Flynn. Today, a conversation with artist Rigoberto Gonzalez, whose work was singled out in a newsletter from the White House as an example of artworks and exhibitions deemed objectionable or divisive. Rigoberto says, nope, his paintings simply reflect the realities and struggles of migration. This is Homegoings. We're a proud member of the NPR network. Welcome home. When did you make this painting, Rigoberto?
The painting was started in 2019 and then completed during the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, so you had a lot of time. And how did it make its way to the Smithsonian? What's the story there?
Yet the Smithsonian has a portrait competition, the Outwin portrait competition, that is very competitive, very prestigious. Whoever wins it gets $25,000. I found out about it on online, a call for art, and I have participated and been a finalist twice. The previous time that I participated, it was also with a group of immigrants. In that case, they were crossing between El Paso and Ciudad Juarez in Mexico. I did get a couple of commissions from the first time I participated. Being a finalist, it's a great honor to be a finalist because you have hundreds of submissions. It's
Mm.
peer reviewed. They have a select group of jurors from across the country. It was selected through that process, and it became a finalist. Was at the Smithsonian for maybe 6 months, and it traveled the country to other venues. The Smithsonian had a choreographer in residence that saw the painting, and he choreographed a dance and a performance based on the painting. So I think the painting has always really spoken to people.
It's interesting how much symbolism is in that painting that still holds true today, right? That's still relevant.
Mhm.
I mean, you live in Texas.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. How far are you from the border itself?
Right now, I'm in Edinburgh, Texas. I would say I'm about 10 miles from the border.
Wow, very
Yeah,
close. Yeah. So
very
I,
close to the border.
I think I'm wondering like how much of you is in this inspiration, I think, to make this painting, like either where you live or your family or your upbringing or the people in your lives. Like, how is immigration touching you? I don't know, daily or personally?
Well, it's been a constant theme in my work, and also it's been the immigration is it's a concern and something that is a reality here where I live. For example, just in myself, I was born in Mexico. My grandfather, he came to the U.S. after the Mexican Revolution, fleeing Mexico, looking for a better situation. Came to the U.S. I mean, this is back in the 1929 that he was born. So
Mm,
you had the Great Depression, and then the family moved back to Mexico. Uh, and my father grew up, traveling back and forth, working in the U.S., going back to Mexico. But he started his family in Mexico, and that's where I was born. There was a lot of economic uncertainty in Mexico at the time, the mid 80s, and we came to the U.S. So I came here legally. My
mm,
father was always concerned for the safety of the family, and he raised the money, talked to a lawyer, like got all the documentation ready. Where I grew up, it was in Mexico. It was a little farming community, very close to the river. Very close to the river on the Mexican side.
mm.
And so I understand the whole, uh, concerns with the criminality that is associated with immigration. There was a lot of smuggling to the United States and also into Mexico. So that was a reality for me from a very young age. And also, when we came here, some of the first things that we did is we were farm workers. We did farm work in Michigan and Ohio, and we were surrounded by other immigrants. Some here that were here illegally. A lot of so I would spend a lot of time with what is referred to now as military age males uh, that were working, and they had all types of different stories of their journeys, their travels to the U.S., stories of survivals, being stranded in the desert, having friends perish in the desert or drown in the river. So all those stories really ingrained themselves in me
Mm.
and shaped my interest as an artist. It's a sincere and genuine experience that I'm depicting, and also
Yeah.
a sincere concern for the immigrant because it's something that I've always lived very close to.
a lot of this like kind of Baroque era style of painting was reserved for like dukes and like lavish couches and women and pearls and dresses and the details on every little thing. That is not what is being depicted here. Was there some sort of was there some reason why you chose this particular style that was reserved for this sort of elitism?
The style, of course, the Baroque period is something that I've always been interested in as an artist, from a very young age. Of course, painting is always associated with the wealthy, with royalty. That's especially that scale. My interest in borrowing that scale is to make the journey and the, I guess, the plight of the immigrants more monumental. Also, one thing that
Mm,
I do with my paintings is that I try and put the horizon line at the knee, so it's a very low horizon line. So it's almost like we're looking at the people in my paintings, either like they're on a stage or we are on the ground, or we're very small. And often artists use that in the past, 1600s, they would use that to accentuate the power and the grandiosity of the king or the queen. But so I try and borrow that to give the importance of the suffering of immigrants, to call attention to it by increasing their scale and their size within the painting. Having said that, it was also artists like Caravaggio, Jose de Rivera, that started to depict the common people as saints. They would take beggars off the street, maybe shady characters from bars or pubs, and dress them up as saints. I always mention that there's nothing original in what I do other than the story. I try and depict contemporary stories with these old, time tested visual, devices in a way.
mm. Very cool. Yeah, art is always borrowing from other art. I think about where you live and listening to how your family came to America is something I'm sure a lot of people are curious about, right? When they see your work. But I also think about Texas, and the assumptions about Texas is that a painting like this would really stand out there, right? Like it's a red state. It's a place where there are these border issues. But I'm curious, are you a little bit of a rebel where you live or in your art world or among your peers?
I I would say that in Texas, yes, my perception and my experience would be considered outside of the political norm. But I think because of the rise in depending on jobs in the oil field and oil industry, that has made even this part of Texas, very deep South Texas, which was traditionally Democratic, uh, take on a very conservative outlook. People vote their jobs. These are very high paying jobs for people that a lot of oil field workers have, minimal education, and so it's very attractive to them. These very high paying jobs, of course, very physically demanding. People speak about the high wages that they're paid, but of course, it's very abusive. They're physically demanding, a lot of injuries. There's no guarantees that the job will be there the next year,
Mm.
and I think it's tragic what has happened to the state. We had a little talk yesterday at the university. We were talking about bilingual education and the benefits of bilingual education, and I spoke about my work. One of the other professors said, "Your work, just because of its depiction of immigrants, is already being subversive. It is something that is not welcomed by the new administration. The depiction, I think it is in a way heroic. The way, like what we talked about, the scale in the way that I paint the immigrants, uh, makes them monumental, brings on some heroic elements into their depiction."
It's almost too real. Yeah. You're not just a rebel in Texas, right? Because back in August, the White House sent a letter to the Smithsonian requesting a comprehensive internal review of, I think it was 8 Smithsonian museums and their exhibitions, and released a list of artists who had hung their work in the Smithsonian. and work he deemed a distorted history, a distorted version of history. And you were on this list. Your work was on this list. Why do you think you were on that list? And why do you think you were targeted?
From his first run at the presidency, Trump mentioned that Mexico was not sending its best people, that some were murderers or rapists. We all remember those words. So from the beginning, his rise to power has been through targeting immigrants, targeting Mexicans. So I was not surprised at all when my painting was almost like front cover of the press release, because it spoke a truth about immigration. It spoke
Hmm.
a truth about the anti-immigrant sentiment. I think it's quite interesting that they chose to display it so prominently, and I think they did that to speak directly to their base. I mean, you spoke about how the painting is very literal. So when they reviewed the exhibitions at the Smithsonian, I think mine stood out clearly.
How did it make you feel, though, to be on that list? Were you sad or, I don't know, amused? What was the feeling?
Oh,
That's quite a list to be on from the White House.
I was happily surprised. So it was a little scary, but I was happy. I was happy that the painting had made a statement and it had disturbed and created discomfort on the administration that probably feel very powerful by intimidating people. And so I was very happy, and I wear their disapproval as a badge of honor, because everything they stand for and they speak about, I am totally against it. I knew that, having been at the Smithsonian and speaking to the curators and speaking about their future plans, this is back in 2016, I knew that if Trump came to power, there would be problems. There would be some issues, and my I think my painting is mentioned on the press release that it is part of the collection. It's not part of the collection. It was displayed there, but it hangs in the home of a private collector. So I
Yeah.
think in that regard they got the story wrong, and I think they just wanted to showcase, an image that would speak directly of what they don't approve of.
Right.
So I still, yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't even hanging there anymore. I find that
Yeah,
really interesting to still be targeted and not even hanging there. It's not like you can take any action. It was purchased to live in somebody's home. And so
well, it
you
did travel across the country as part of
okay.
the Outwind portrait competition. Traveling exhibition. It did.
Right. So it traveled the country as part of a traveling exhibition, but then it ended up in somebody's home. And so it's just interesting that you would be on this list as an example when nobody can really do anything about it. There's no way to take it down. It's not hanging. So yeah, it was really about what your painting was about, right? You were used as kind of a model of what the White House did not want to see.
When I saw the other works on there, saw my work, it reminded me of the 1930s in Germany when they had degenerate art exhibitions where they gathered work by artists that the Nazis disapproved of, work that was outside of their stated goals, that questioned their supremacy, and that's what it brought to mind. And I think it's been in in people's mind because they see that connection. I believe. I think they see the troubling connection. It's again another sign that they're fascist, even though they say like we're not fascist. Like, I mean, they do the salute, they ban art.
Right.
They're butchering the Constitution. Just when was it yesterday? The Supreme Court had this ruling where ICE can stop somebody just because they look Hispanic or they're working uh, a type of job that's associated with immigrants.
Hmm.
It's like What else do you need? Do you need the armbands with the swastika? Like, it's like it's it's so ridiculous. Like, what other proof do we need?
You got the president pissed, right? So did you immediately feel like it was a badge of honor, or was any part of you worried?
There is a part of me worried because I teach at one of the big universities in Texas, and again, it's a very conservative state. I've gotten a lot of publicity, CNN, the Washington Post, twice, and so I am a little worried. Yeah, like, are they gonna? There, some friends are like, you're already blacklisted. There's probably some kind of logarithm or something tracking all your conversation.
Mm.
But I think we need to stand up. We need to do the right thing. We can't backtrack.
Rigoberto, are you optimistic about anything right now?
Am I an optimist? No. But if you're a realist and a pessimist, you realize that you have to do something to make the world better. You just can't. Well, things are gonna be okay. That's not gonna work. We have to do our job. I've been blessed in a way with all the coverage. The painting made a newspaper in France, and it talks about what we're talking about. So I've got a lot of attention. People have looked at the work. My students and other people, they have come up to me like, we've seen your video, and I just want to thank you for standing up for the community and speaking your mind about the current political situation. So we have to become more active. We have to get out on the streets. We have to take part in some type of activity that will bring on some change.
If the world does kind of devolve or continue to devolve, as you say, it possibly could. Where will your art go from here?
I will continue to seek inspiration from the world around me. I am sketching out ideas. I want to do a painting of ICE kidnapping, because that's what they do. They kidnap people, and the struggle of that fight. And I will just continue to bring awareness to the suffering and the there's the stories of the immigrants, of the refugees.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to continue to be a part of the Homegoings family, stay in touch at homegoings.co and subscribe to the Homegoings podcast wherever you listen. Take good care.